There are so many benefits to Equitape. Many you will discover as you continue to practice and grow in your knowledge, benefits that will surprise you, but my favorite is the ability to provide pain relief, reduce fatigue. It helps facilitate quicker recovery, whether it's an upper level athlete where you're trying to get more out of your workouts, or a horse that is coming back to work after an injury. It decreases swelling and inflammation. It really helps the horse heal naturally. That's what I love about this tape. It is non-invasive and it allows the horse's body to heal more naturally.
Another great benefit to point out is that when you increase blood and lymph flow, you can decrease toxins and metabolic waste product. This is an important part of the training side of Equitape. We can allow these athletes to work harder for longer and not be as sore the next day. That's a big thing that you're going to get out of using Equitape. Another great thing is the support of joints. You'll be able to fully support a joint while not restricting a horse's movement. That means they can still be turned out, they can work, they can jump, they can do everything in life and still have an amazing support on their joints.
A huge benefit of Equitape is the ability to help prevent injury, especially in our equine athletes. Whether you're a reiner or you ride dressage, this gives you a tool to really maximize performance and prevent injury.
Sure. Another great benefit is that we can communicate with proprioception in the horse. And this is important, especially horses that have young horses. I love to use it when I'm training a young horse because they're kind of, trippy and always falling around, and you're yelling at the horse all the time, hey, pay attention to your feet. I mean, you can actually communicate now with the proprioception in the horse from walking, be able to improve the gait of the horse to just being able to calm down because they're thinking about their feet versus the entire world around them. So that's a great thing to point out as well. Another thing that I love is that we can encourage muscles to either lengthen or we can encourage them to contract. So now here's another bonus that can hit not only training, but rehab. We can help increase the strength and performance of a muscle, but then we can also relax that muscle. Spasming, stiff muscles, we're able to create length in them. So this is some great benefits, and we are going to explain to you how each and every one of these benefits can happen.
How does Equitape actually work? We're going to get into the science behind it, but I want to demonstrate to you the recoil effect. Many of our applications work because through this recoil effect, we're actually decompressing tissue and working with the complex anatomy of the skin to achieve the therapeutic results that we're aiming for.
Absolutely. So when the decompression happens, what's happening is we're taking pressure off of different vascular channels. We're taking pressure off sensories and different receptors. And what happens, like in trauma, we've all seen it either on ourselves or an animal, and that all that swelling starts to happen, the edema starts to build up. By relieving that pressure, we can start to help the animal's body heal naturally, because the longer it sits there, the more damage that it's starting to do on the structures underneath it. So the way that happens is just by the simple recoil of the tape and lifting it up. The sensitive receptors that live in the hair root plexus and in the skin, when you decompress those sensors, now they don't feel so much pain. And again, we can allow the animal to heal more naturally and much more quickly. And then we can also, by the use of that recoil, where we put the recoil, what direction it's going, we can create a continuous effect on multiple systems in the body, both circulatory and nervous. Okay, so let's talk about the hair root plexus. And we bring this up because it's one of the most interesting parts of how the tape itself does its job. It's basically a group of nerve fiber endings that live around the follicle of the hair. And these nerve endings have all kinds of sensors in them. Sensors that pick up vibration, pressure, heat, cold, the lightest of touch to more intense touches. And so by using the tape and the recoil to communicate with these sensors, we are able to get to, say, we want to do a muscle contraction. We can communicate with the spindle fibers in a muscle simply by talking to the mechanoreceptor that lives inside of the hair root plexus. And on the other side of it, we can communicate with that same muscle, but we want to talk to the Golgi tendon, and we want to encourage that lengthening. So we're doing this by having open and intimate communication with all of the receptors that live not only in the hair root plexus, but in the skin itself. And the skin is so very complicated, but we like to say that, cells that are wired together fire together. And the skin and the brain cell are so uniquely similar to each other. And we believe through research and studies that the amount of receptors that are in the equine skin and hair is much more than what you expect in the humans. We put this together basically because they're prey animals. They need more. So you have a horse out in the pasture, he can feel 15-mile-per-hour winds. He can also feel that split second that the wind slows down and picks back up. That tells the horse to be worried there's a predator out there. That's how we are able to communicate so intricately with the equine system.
I like to think of a horse's skin as a giant neurosensory organ. We teach you the anatomy, and we want to challenge you to continue learning about the complicated anatomy of the horse, because it will give you such a healthy respect for this modality, and it will also make you a more effective equitaping practitioner.
Absolutely. I think the more of the healthy respect of how you can influence the body, the better. I want you to focus on some of these slides that you're going to be seeing in this course. They're very in-depth. And so we don't just go out there and slap a piece of tape on a horse. In this modality, in equitape, it is so important to know exactly what you're doing to that animal before you put the piece of tape on it. I mean, think about the Krause bulb. That one sensor only picks up cold, but then you can get into like the Ruffini, and this is a whole different sensor. They're all living in the same place, so be careful when you start to communicate with them. So let's talk a little bit about the tactile receptors in the skin. We've dug into them, but let's tie it all together now, right? So how does this actually make a difference? Equitape interacts with the mechanoreceptors, neuroreceptors, all in the skin to help either a muscle fire, to help encourage circulation of blood or lymph. We're using the connection of the skin and all of those sensors to be able to support a joint. Believe it or not, we can communicate with the body to where not only are they using the tape's recoil to help support the joint, but the body is concerned about that particular leg. Thereby, the horse is going to think each and every step he takes. That's how we tie all of it together and show you how complex this can be.
Now that you see that equitape has the ability to influence multiple systems of the horse, think about what is going on when actual decompression happens. When you are in essence creating space, you are inviting the body to move more fluid and circulation to that area, more oxygen-rich blood. And so if you've watched some of our videos on social media, you'll notice very dramatic before and after. It's because we are interacting with anatomy to accomplish a specific physiological goal, because we understand what is going on beneath the surface.
So let's dive into effects that we get through using equitape. Most important thing to remember is that you're only going to achieve these effects through the proper application of the stretch and the recoil. So let's talk about how this is going to work. When tape is stretched and then applied, the adhesive grabs onto the hair and the skin and it lifts. This recoil in the tape then provides space, and in that space is increased circulation of either blood or lymph flow. This is where we start to bring the oxygen into the area. We start pulling the toxins out of the area. It stimulates movement in fascial tissue, which is extremely important because the fascia connects to everything on the body. And we can prove the skin decompression. We've had MRI studies, ultrasounds, and we get asked every time we do this course, can I see the studies? Can I have a printout of it? You actually are going to be able to have a printout of every study that we will cite throughout this entire course. It's going to be available to you in a PDF form.
I'd love to demonstrate to you guys this idea of recoil effect. If you have tape with you, feel free to practice with me. But a simple thing. So what I'm going to do is tear out the middle, pull back, put in a good amount of stretch. Do full stretch. And I want you to just set it down on your shirt, okay? Let go of those ends. Lay them down with your fingers, flat fingers. And now I want you to notice what is happening to my shirt. So if you can see, there's kind of a wave pattern or a ribbing. That is a great example of what is going on. So you may not see it, but what you're doing is truly affecting the elasticity in the skin and causing that decompression through the recoil effect.
This is another one of the reasons we say have a healthy respect for what the tape can do.
One thing we found at Equi is that it has an incredible effect on nociception. In one study, application properly applied was actually more effective at pain and edema reduction than in naproxen and physical therapy combination.
A great thing that's happening now is Equi is being used post-op. It's safe. It's a promising approach to reduce pain right after surgery, and that's lowering how many drugs these horses have to be on and opioids. So that's exciting, especially for us. We get to go to some surgical centers sometimes and see horses coming straight out of surgery with tape on, and it's just so exciting because we know that these horses are feeling better so much quicker and they're recovering faster from that particular injury.
Another study that we'll give you is that pain reduction has been found to be significantly superior in control groups in using Equi versus traditional drugs.
The effects on proprioception. This is a big deal, I think, for a lot of rehab people and on the training side, trainers and professional riders. One of the things that we can do is there are horses out there, I'm sure you've experienced it yourself. There's nothing physically wrong with them, muscularly speaking, skeletally speaking, biomechanically. Everything's fine, yet they'll still walk short-gaited. And this is proprioception. It's like their mind gets caught in a cycle. And by using Equi, you can now disrupt that in a very calm way. We've all seen some of those boots that they'll make a horse stand on for 5 minutes or so to mess up proprioception, try to reset that. You can put the same type of proprioception application on the leg of a horse, but they can actually wear it for a couple days straight. This allows you to start to reset some of those things as well. It's also very effective in correcting gaits. You've got horses that maybe want to swing out, or they're short stepping, but they don't short step it all the time. This is a way that we use the proprioception to deal with some of those things as well.
One of the benefits of being able to affect the proprioception abilities of a horse, you are basically helping them change how they interact with the world around them, how they feel their bodies, how they sense themselves, how they interact with the ground when they're moving. You can actually reset muscle memory.
We also use the tape proprioception-wise to excite the horse's nervous system. You've got a big competition coming up. You are using the tape to reduce fatigue. You're using the tape to support the joints. But we start to see like the horse is just kind of like, yeah, I'm getting a little tired. It may not be physical tired, it may be mental tired. You can use proprioception taping to excite the nervous system and invigorate them. So that's a really fun thing to do as well. Elastic kinesiology tape, the physiological influences. Once the tape has recoiled, what happens? Through recoil, we can support, we can influence mechanical, and we can create lift. And this affects muscle lengths, and that would be the shortening of the muscle in contraction
or the lengthening of the muscle in relaxation, improves range of motion, and this is by affecting the mechanical side of it. The effects and thereby the success of any given application is always dependent upon the amount of stretch, the direction of the recoil, the application or pattern of tape that you use. Decompression of tissue. Now we're talking more about lift. This is going to affect the circulatory system and metabolic effects. So the more we increase circulation, the more we get that oxygen-rich blood into the area. This creates decompression on pain receptors, and it also influences the lymph system. Another important physiological effect is the muscle metabolism. If we bring a lot of oxygen-rich blood to a muscle, when the muscle starts to work, it becomes oxygen debt. So it's less and less oxygen within the muscle itself, and that affects how it can do its job. So when we push a lot of oxygen-rich blood to that muscle, that oxygen debt decreases and their ability for aerobic workout increases, and this decreases fatigue. That is how you get our slogan to train harder and recover quicker. And on the flip side of this is that oxygen-rich blood goes in very quickly, but also those toxic byproducts are coming out of the muscle quickly. So this allows the horse to have multiple days of more intense aerobic workout. Another physiological influence is neurosensory receptors, right? And this is where the influence of the skin, the mechanoreceptors, is increased and we can get better proprioception. And I think this is one of my favorite parts of what the tape can do, really.
Here is a wonderful example of the vascular effects of elastic kinesiology tape. Here we have a human example. You can see the edema, the bruising. I love it because it visualizes exactly where those tape tentacles were put on. This is a great visual example because you can see over a 4-week period that the body was actually able to heal quicker where the tape was applied. So again, EquiTape facilitates the natural healing process of the body on both horses and humans.
Something really amazing that we love at EquiTape is being able to prove the physiological effects on the horse. And we get asked a lot, do you have any science behind it? We do. What you're going to see here is a range of thermography. And this particular study was done in April 2013. And we started out with no tape on the horse. And as each slide goes through, I encourage you to look at them very closely. You will see one piece of tape was added, then another piece of tape was added, and a third final piece of tape was added. You can see the change in circulation based off of the colors. I like to bring everybody's attention to that 6th slide where you see those big blotches of white. That is a massive increase in circulation. Once the tape was removed, you can see in the last slide, you still see the effect on the skin itself. It still looks like something's sitting there. It's not. When we talked earlier about the effects can happen up to 48 hours after the tape has been taken off, that kind of shows you there on that slide that looks like the tape is still there. But it also shows you how quickly that circulation can back off as well. This is important for a lot of you practitioners who are out on the show circuits. And maybe you're only able to work on these horses during that brief window of, 9 o'clock at night till 4 a.m. in the morning. You want to get the best bang for your buck. You're going to be able to affect that horse very, very quickly and throughout the entire period of time that the tape is on. So, an 8 to 12 hour window is still a lot of time and some great effect on the horse.
All right, let's talk about muscle anatomy. So in review, there are 3 main muscle groups. We've got the smooth. Those are involuntary. Think of internal viscera, think of bladder, think of the digestive system. We've got our cardiac muscle, which is also involuntary. and it is fatigue resistant because it is designed to always be working. Now we have the skeletal muscles. These are the critical parts of the anatomy that we can affect directly and indirectly with proper Equitape applications. All skeletal muscles have an origin and an insertion point. This is critical because part of our methodology is based on understanding where that insertion point is, where that origin point is, whether you're trying to relax a muscle or assist a muscle. This is very, very important. We highly encourage you to have an anatomy app on your phone. Even when we're still out treating horses, we're always careful to review, looking at all the layers of muscles and thinking about the horse as a whole. Remember, the origin of the muscle is usually closer to the center line or midline of the body. The insertion point of a muscle is usually on the most flexible part of the anatomy. But be careful, there are some tricky muscle groups like the brachiocephalicus where the insertion point isn't necessarily where you would expect it to be.
Little isthmus muscle throws people for loops there too.
Yep, it sure does. So remember, the belly of the muscle is usually closer to the origin point. And this is important when you're about to put on a piece of tape, how much stretch you want to apply in the direction of the recoil that you want to occur.
Okay. And then in most cases, the muscle contraction, that belly usually moves up towards the origin. Right? So in Equitape, there are two different type of muscles that we aggressively go after. So there are deep stabilizer muscles. Think anything that helps stabilize the horse posture, joints, all of that is going to be your deep stabilizers. And then your superficial muscles. And this is what's right underneath the skin. We do get asked, how is it that you're able to get to deep stabilizer muscles when the tape is closest to the superficial muscle? But what happens is as you start to decompress the tissue, you can increase vascular supply, and through the fascia itself, it's all connected down. So you can get all the way down to that deep stabilizer muscle. You know, tape increases muscle strength. Especially if you use it consistently, you will get a massive increase in the strength of the muscle. And we also have a lot of case studies showing that the effects of this will last up to 48 hours after the application is removed. So people jump in there. You can be so effective in training regimens just because you're able to increase the strength of the muscle itself. Benefits of using Equitape. One of the major benefits is the relief from pain, inflammation, or swelling. What you're seeing here is a lymphedema case. Dr. Beverly Gordon, this was one of her cases. She decided to support the horse only. So the application you're seeing is a full support, trying to support the biomechanics of the horse underneath all of that inflammation. So we have swelling. It's generally when we're talking about trauma. Trauma happens, edema happens, swelling happens. Inflammation can be more of a fluid buildup. So in the case of lymphedema, it's a lot of fluid building up within the lymph nodes. So she did a support application. Now, as you'll learn about each of these applications, when we do support applications, the first goal isn't to bring down inflammation, but she wanted to prove how effective the tape in its own right, being decompressive, can increase circulation and decrease inflammation and swelling. So there was no inflammation taping done on this. There was no lymphatic taping done on this, simply a support. And that's how effective Equitape can be.
Another incredible benefit of Equitape that we use all the time is to support joints, ligaments, and tendons. So think about your equine athletes. They can always use preventative care and support of their joints while in movement, but also in the rehabilitation side of things. When a horse is recovering from an injury and coming back to work, you want to help that body be stable and secure. So in the slide, you're seeing several examples of actual support. And even on an extreme DSLD case, using the proper techniques and really designing, you can actually change the angles of a DSLD horse. Just make sure that you're in communication with your vet and your farrier because it will change how the hoof hits the ground.